Good evening. We're going to call the Administration and Public Works Committee, excuse me, for August the 13th. To begin, we have a quorum. First order of business is approval of minutes for the regular meeting dated July 23rd, 2018. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Can someone second? Can I second?
No, you can.
Can someone, I can?
You can.
All right, I'll second that. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are going to take public comment. We have a couple comments that have to do with our consent calendar before we vote on those items. So, Mr. Rinsky, can you come up and give your address?
Is he the only one, Madam Chair?
This is the only speaker for items that are on consent calendar, so we're going to take him before we do the consent items and vote.
Got it.
It appears the city has lost the lawsuit with the Chicagoland paving contractors for performance problems, $265,000. I want to remind Alderman that's basically a 0.5% property tax increase. Of course, I can FOIA the total cost. There no doubt were legal fees and things included in this. Is probably quite a bit more. Item 10A tonight is something very similar. Staff is claiming they can get $153,900 from liquidated damages for the contractor for Fountain Square. Will we collect this? Very highly, maybe highly unlikely. Of course, it's okay to pretend today we are going to collect it and approve it if it is on consent agenda. Maybe in a year the public will forget. But again, if we add in the legal fees and other problems, we probably have another 0.5% property tax increase. So, as we all know, the legal department is a big hole in our budget, and it grows. There's an interesting pattern here, though. Contractors are blamed all the time for screwing up, and the staff's the victims. But having run projects myself for many years, I make them successful, and I don't blame others. You got to manage these projects, and that's a big problem here. And I'll move on to AP 16. The waste just continues on Howard Street. $600,000 for engineering. Basically, we're taking more money out of GEO bonds tonight, which we don't have money for. It's another tax increase, $133,000. So that's a 0.25% property tax increase. That's Howard Street again. More stuff that's unnecessary on Howard Street. And finally, AP 17, Lincolnwood. I think I've talked about this numerous times, that the water department needs to show all the customers as a group and what they are paying. Because as I know and we all know, the city takes $3 million out of the water fund and transfers it to the general fund plus more. And basically Evanston residents are overpaying on their water bills. They're going to come tonight and say, isn't this great? We're getting a big deal, all this profit and everything. So maybe it's time to figure out what the real profit is. In a business, you don't run up and say, hey, I just got one sale and I made a profit. You look at the whole business. They haven't done that and they're not willing to do it. And that is a problem. And if any alderman understands that, he really should understand that. It's not a business, it's a scam, is what we have here, unfortunately. And I'll end at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now go through the consent agenda. Before I read the items and we vote, there are a couple items that are going to be pulled off by request. So item A2 is coming off, A10, and A11. That's on the consent agenda. All right, so A1 is payroll dated July 9th, 2018 through July 22nd, 2018 in the amount of $3,201,457.76. A3 is the purchase of 3 Public Works Agency vehicles from Curry Motors Incorporated and JX Peterbilt. This is in the amount of, $256,211 coming from the Equipment Replacement Fund. That is for action. Fuel purchase of Gas Depot Oil Company, from Gas Depot Oil Company for July 6th through July 5th, 2019. The staff is recommending we make this purchase. The prices that we are going to lock in are $2.42 a gallon for 87 octane gasoline and $2.50 a gallon for biodiesel. This is coming from the Major Maintenance Materials and Maintain Auto Fund. A5 is the Benchmark Analytics License Agreement. Staff is recommending we authorize City Council for the license agreement with Benchmark Analytics for 3 years with an option to renew. The expense is paid for out of the police department's operating budget, and the amount is $25,000 for our first contract and $26,000 for the second. A6 is a contract with Capital Cement Company for 2018 alley and street improvement project. We're executing a contract for this project with Capital Cement Incorporated in the amount of $874,761.30. The funding is from 2018 General Obligation Bond in the amount of $275,940, and Special Assessment Funds in the amount of $213,645, and Community Development Block Funds at $385,176.30. A7 is a contract with Bodella LLC doing business as Central Rug and Carpet for the Noise Cultural Arts Center hallway and common area improvements. We're executing a contract with this company for replacement hallway projects at Noise Cultural Arts Center. The amount is $199,145,000. Funding is provided from the 2018 Capital Improvement Fund and will be reimbursed by the Noise Tenant Reserve Fund. A8 is a contract with McGuire and Associates for architectural and engineering services related to the Water Quality Laboratory. We're executing a contract in the amount of $182,025. Funding is coming from the Water Fund, which has a budgeted amount of $150,000 for these services in 2018, and an additional $75,000 in 2019. A9 is a contract with Giant Maintenance and Restoration for 2018 fire hydrant paintings. We are going into a contract with the amount of $21,070. Funding will come from the Water Fund, which already has an allocation of $36,000 for hydrant painting. And those are all the items for consideration and consent agenda. Is there a motion? Oh, can we get a motion?
So
Better.
Okay, Alderman.
moved. So it would be. I'm sorry, Alderman Fleming. Second.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
Madam Chair, I just want to make one minor correction.
Sure.
I'm supporting every item, but on the benchmarking item, the item that's being supported, I think, by the Woods Foundation for the first 3 years, I think you've indicated that the first 2 years were $26,000.
I did. Thanks for that correction.
The first 3 years are being paid for by the foundation.
Yeah, so
And
let me
those are the
update that for
fourth
the
and
record.
fifth years.
Thank you. So I'm going to reread A5 for correction in the record. It's the Benchmarks Analytic License Agreement. The staff is recommending City Council authorize the license agreement with Benchmarks Analytics for 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional years. The software system will assist with the management of the EPD through the analysis of law enforcement-related information. The license agreement provides that years 1 through 3 will be paid for through a grant with the Joyce Foundation. And if we decide to renew the license for years 4 and 5, the cost is $25,000 for year 4 and $26,000 for year 5. Thank you, Alderman Rainey, for that correction. So it's been moved and seconded for consent agenda. All those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I am now going to go to, do we get the bills list? I'll give you also a little more time for the bills list. Going to go to item A10, which is change order number 2 to the engineering services contract for Fountain Square renovation project with Christopher Burke. Staff is recommending City Council authorize City Manager to approve this change order number 2 to the existing engineering services contract for the Fountain Square renovation project with Christopher Burke in the amount of $39,113.01. This will modify the existing agreement amount of $945,438.68 to $984,551.69 and extend the contract deadline from September 30th, 2018 to December 31st, 2018. Funding for this work will be through the Washington National TIF Fund from liquidated damages assessed against the construction contractor for failure to complete the work within the specified time. As of August 1st, 2018, a total of $12,000 in liquidated damages has been assessed against the construction contractor. This is for action.
Second.
All right, Alderman Rainey?
Could we get an explanation of how the liquidated damages are going to be extracted from the contractor?
Good evening, Dave Stonek, Public Works Director. Liquidated damages are taken away from the contractor as he submits a payment application. So when he submits something and its value, say, $1 million, we subtract the liquidated damages from that and pay him. If we subtracted $20,000, we would pay him $920,000 or $980,000. So it's not like we have to recover the liquidated damages from the contractor. We just deduct that from the value that he's earned and not pay that to him.
So, that's what I figured you would do. We're always one step ahead from some people. Thank you.
And then I have a question also for this, and it pertains to 11 as well, but I know that we've had some issues with the contractor, as it says here. So can you just explain Christopher Burke's relationship? If we've had some issues, are they the contractor we've had issues with, or are they a separate entity?
We have two separate contracts on this project. One is with the engineer, which is Christopher Burke, and one is with the contractor, that is Copenhaver. It is my opinion that Christopher Burke has done as good a job as they can do on this project, and I think that they've really helped the contractor not be as bad as they seem to be. So they have really pushed the contractor to try to get a schedule out of them, which is very difficult to do. They have reviewed submittals way beyond what would normally be required to address issues that the contractor was inappropriate in submitting complete documents in the submittals. They questioned the schedule that the contractor would indicate they were going to do this work. Well, you had to do this other work first, and Christopher Burke would point that out to them and really kind of help guide the contractor along to try to do the work. I know I've heard a lot about, and it was actually on the interview, would it have been appropriate for the contractor to test the water pipes underneath the fountain before they poured the structural concrete on top of it? It would have, but that's not the pressure test that's required by the specifications, because you backfill it, you can test it, and then you know that your subcontractor did their work appropriately, and then you pour in the concrete foundation of the fountain over it. Well, doing that work could also damage the pipes as well. So to protect the city, the specifications developed by Christopher Burke says you have to test the pipes once everything's installed. Copenhaver elected not to do a preliminary test when the pipes are first installed and backfilled. They are adhering to the contract specs and testing it after it was backfilled and after the concrete structure was placed on top of it, and we found leaks. Had they only tested it after it was backfilled to build the concrete structure, it may have leaked and then we wouldn't have caught it. So the specs are right that it requires the pressure test after all the work is done. And people are claiming, well, how come Burke didn't make Copenhaver test it earlier? They suggested it to him, but it wasn't required in the contract. The final product is being tested. It's found a leak, and the contractor is assuming the responsibility to repair that. The city is making no additional payment to the contractor to make all the piping work. We're still holding $400,000 in retainage for work that was previously completed. We're in good shape in this project. And part of that is because Christopher Burke has done a great job assisting the city in managing the contractor.
Thank you. And then my last question is, how confident, if you can be confident, are you in this new deadline?
The deadline?
Which is December 31st.
I feel fairly confident. So there were, yeah, that's hard to say. There were 5 pipelines that were leaking. 4 of them have been fixed. The 5th one we thought was going to hold last time. They're lining it. They found an error in the lining. Hopefully that will be fixed soon, and then we can start actually testing the software, if you will, of the fountain, making sure that the fountains go up when they're supposed to, the color lights change and all that. And then the glass has to come in as well, and we expect that within that time period. So we expect construction to wrap up well before December 31st, but then there will be project closeout that has to be addressed, and that will take them until December 31st.
All right, thank you. All right, Alderman Rainey?
Well, Dave, this fountain won't operate in the winter, will it?
No, we would normally shut it down at the first sign of frost. So generally mid-November is the latest that we would do it. It might even be earlier, depending on the weather forecast. And then we would start it up again next spring when there's no frost coming in again.
So you're pretty sure, though, we'll be able to test it before winter?
Yes,
and then
I believe
secure it
testing will begin hopefully by the end of this month, and that we can enjoy it in September and October, and then maybe have to close it down for the
But we'll
winter.
be able to secure it. They use antifreeze. I mean, what do they do? Just
Right.
drain it?
You have to drain it, and there are items that have to be cleaned up, and it's in the contract that the contractor is responsible for that this year and the next year startup. So, and our people will learn and watch them do that. They'll hire a subcontractor to do all that work for them.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further lights, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving A10, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries over. And A11 is the consulting contract amendment number 3, design and construction engineering services on Sherman Avenue between Davis Street and Church Street. Staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to amend and extending engineering services contract for Fountain Square renovation project with Christopher Burke in the amount of $64,861.10. This will modify the existing agreement amount from $984,551.69 to $1,049,412.79 and extend the contract deadline from December 31st, 2018 to September 30th, 2019. Funding is available through the Washington National TIF through savings realized from the earlier portions of Fountain Square renovation project, and the actual construction to be awarded at a future date will be funded partially by additional savings and through the use of an additional $100,000 in funding from the Washington National TIF per action. Second. All right, Dave. So again, I pulled this off because I wanted you to give a little more explanation for ourselves and the public, since, again, Fountain Square has now been on the news and we've had some issues.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity. Our contract with Copenhagen is around $5.9 million. We anticipate that the final project will come in somewhere around 5.4 or 5.5. So that leaves that $400,000 allocated for the current project. And then, if you remember way back when we started this, there was actually 3 parts to this project. The main fountain area that we're dealing with now, the potential to replace the sidewalk on the east side of Sherman Avenue between Davis and Church, and then the third portion was replace the sidewalk on the west side of Orrington between Davis and Church. When we initially awarded the contractor the contract, it didn't appear that there would be sufficient funds in the TIF funding to be able to do the Phase 2 and the Phase 3 work. Based on where we're anticipating closing the first contract out with, and the funds that are available in the Washington National TIF, taking another $100,000, we feel that we'll be able to restore the sidewalk or replace the sidewalk that's on the east side of Sherman Avenue. That's the brick paver block sidewalk that is depressed and tripping hazards. So we'll replace that sidewalk with concrete, put the brick ribbon in it, and then we'll also be able to resurface the street in that block of Sherman as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no lights, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving A11, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, before we move on, I'm going to go back to the bills list. So A2 is the bills list dated August 14, 2018, in the amount of $7,783,168.33, as well as credit card activity, not including Amazon purchases for the period ending June 26, 2018, in the amount of $205 $205, 283 and 75 cents. This is for action.
Second.
Second. All right, do we have any questions? Alderman Braithwaite?
Go ahead.
Alderman Braithwaite had one.
No,
All
I'll yield to Alderman Rainey.
right, Alderman Rainey?
No, I'm just wondering, can we have another minute?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, Alderman Braithwaite has a question, so we'll go to him.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess, I don't know who, is this Hitesh? It's an overall question and comment to you. Do you manage all the bills list? Just looking through this and paying a little extra attention to this, Hitesh, I know that Alderman Rainey raised a couple of questions in terms of the expenses, and I basically have 3 comments just in terms of the inconsistency with the comments on the credit card. I'm speaking directly to the credit card list. Okay. And so as I look at this, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but for example, on page 4, Epic Burger, and I know Alderman Rainey asked about the nature of the meeting, but it's categorized as office supplies. And then I look down again, Standard Pipe on that same page, which is admin services, is categorized as building maintenance, but then it says truck stop. Okay. And so...
I mean, the department, yeah, man, good evening. It is this Chief Financial Officer. The departments enter the, code the expenses, directly into the system.
Sure.
But yeah, we can look at it and work with the departments to have those numbers coded correctly.
So so the overall comments would be a little bit more attention to detail. In some categories, it's explained what the trips or who benefits from the trips. In some situations that they don't. Okay. And then my other question for you is, at the end of each department, can you transition that with a subtotal?
We can do, yeah, we can look at that, yeah.
And then the final thing is, you sit on our MWEBE committee, myself and Alderman Simmons. One of the things we're paying very close attention to is the local spend.
All right.
And so it would be helpful, some of these locations, Hitesh, or I'm sure we can figure out just where, but if you can just add a one category with the city, I would really appreciate that.
Okay, we can, look into those
And if
items.
it's too long, then maybe just abbreviate it.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Alderman Rainey, do you have a question? No. No, okay. And I had one question, if I can find it. So it's actually just, I guess, a opinion that I want to give, not necessarily a question. So I had there was a charge on here, and it's only $658.88 on the BMO credit card for the key fobs, I guess, security key fobs that our police department purchased, and I appreciate that. And I guess I just wanted to make a public statement that I would love the district to partner with us a little bit more financially. Our police obviously need access to the buildings in case there's an emergency, and I'm glad that they were proactive in purchasing those. And it is a small amount, but it would be great if the district would maybe just provide the key fobs for the police department so that they can access the buildings. And if I'm understanding that incorrectly, I apologize, but I noticed that was interesting that we were paying for things that I thought the district might just provide. So.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We'll make that request of the district and get back to you.
Thank you. All right, so those have...
I have a question.
Oh, okay, Alderman Rainey.
Ms. Storley, I have another request for you to make. At 745 Howard, we had a police outpost for several, a couple of years. And we provided the police with Comcast service. And for some reason, we had a plan where the program was through 2019. And since we had that plan, we are required to continue paying them to 2019. That's according to the bills list answer. Is Frank Duell the guy that we deal with through Comcast? Or is...
Yes, Alderman Rainey. He is our government affairs liaison to Comcast.
I would suggest that we write to Mr. Duell and is Mr. Dool here tonight? No? Anybody from Comcast here tonight? No. That we write to him and we tell him that it is absolutely outrageous that now that crime is down, we no longer need a police outpost, and that Mr. Dool should cancel this contract. People help us out all over town, and the Comcast is holding the city of Evanston to this contract is outrageous, and that the taxpayers are having to pay for a contract that we no longer use. And not only that, the store that our lease ended and we moved out,
Right.
It's a vacant store, and that we're having to pay for that is crazy.
We have conveniently a Comcast franchise renewal coming up at the end of October. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the
2018? Well, that's even
Yes.
Well,
So we're going to be in discussions with Mr. Dool about the franchise renewal, so we can bring this up as a point and see what we can do about it.
well, could you take and twirl around and show the audience here in this conversation and send it to Mr. Dool and let him know that it's really, really, really unfair for them to be doing that to the taxpayers in this town?
I believe when the service was initially installed, there was no service to the building, and so they had to run some infrastructure to the building in order to put the service into place, which then required the contract to be entered into for more than a standard month-to-month. So that is why the contract is longer than what we had originally anticipated.
I'll bet
but
they got a lot of service users out of that wiring in the building.
I will make the request and return to the committee.
Thank you. I'll send them a little note myself.
Thank you.
All right, so the bills list has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're moving on to item A12, which is Amazon credit card activity, period ending June 26, 2018, in the amount of $23,649.82. Move approval.
Second.
All right, seeing no lights, all in favor of approving A12, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, thank you. Alderman Braithwaite, can you please take A13?
Yep. Madam Chair, I'd like to move item A15, Resolution 57-R-18. Oh, 13, pardon me. How about we do A13? Yeah, okay, just checking. It's Resolution 58-R-18, approving the settlement in Chicagoland Paving Contractors, Inc. versus the City of Evanston.
Second.
All right, seeing no lights, no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. A14, Alderman Ruth Simmons, can you please take that one?
Yes. A14, staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 53R18, authorizing the city manager to negotiate the lease of office space with North Shore Senior Center at the rate of $511.50 per month for 12 months, beginning October 1st, 2018, for 430 square feet of space on the ground floor of the Civic Center, Suite G205. This is for action.
Second.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Alderman Sufferman, A15, please.
A15 is Resolution 57R18, Illinois Department of Transportation Local Agency Agreement for Phase 2 Engineering on the Howard Street Corridor Improvement Project. The agreement establishes the maximum grant funding of the engineering cost not to exceed $462,637 and commits Evanston to fund $137,363 of the engineering costs for action.
Second.
All right, seeing no lights for questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Alderman Rainey, can you please A16?
My computer here, just a second. Okay, just 1 second. This is A16, yes. Staff recommends that we approve resolution, or we recommend approval of Resolution 55R18, which would authorize the manager to sign a preliminary engineering services agreement for federal participation with the Illinois Department of Transportation and a professional services agreement with Christopher Burke in the amount of $600,000 And then the variety of funding issues are the same as the previous one. I move approval. This is for the Howard Street Corridor
Second.
project.
All right, seeing no lights, it's been moved and approved. All those in favor for approving A16, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. A17, we are going to be suspending the rules for A17. It will be for introduction and for action tonight. It's ordinance 83-0-18, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement to sell water to a new wholesale water customer, the village of Lincolnwood. Staff recommends City Council adopt this ordinance authorizing city manager to execute a water supply agreement with the village of Lincolnwood. The initial term of the agreement is for 39 years with 2 10-year extension provisions at the discretion of Lincolnwood.
Second.
Seeing no lights for discussion, all those in favor of approving A17, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And we have 2 speakers for A18. Alderman Revelle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So first, I want to start by applauding staff for developing this innovative proposal for a special event parking charge. It's really admirable that they came up with an idea that was aimed at raising significant revenues, which I know has been really a major focus of all of our conversations for these past few months. And I have to say, initially, when we started talking about the proposal with residents, we heard roughly from half the residents thought this sounded like a good idea, and the other half really had a lot of concerns. But in recent days, the concerns and objections have been increasingly coming my way, and if we were going to address these concerns and objections, we'd have to make some significant changes to the pilot program as it's proposed. So the 3 main concerns that I want to mention, the residents have suggested, and I would agree with them, that any Evanston resident who has paid the city wheel tax should be able to park near the stadium without having to pay the $40 charge. Similarly, if a resident near the parking stadium has non-Evanston guests, once again, those people shouldn't have to pay the $40 surcharge. And also, we heard about caregivers and a number of kinds of people that need to come visit the residents on game day. And then the third area that's a concern is the commuter parking along the Metro track on Poplar. Even though it's not a heavy commuter day, there are people who do park there to take the train downtown, and it wouldn't be reasonable to charge them $40 either. So we would have to remove that area from the pilot program. So considering all these points, one other thing that actually I haven't heard about from residents yet, but is a concern that occurred to me, was whether we've given adequate consideration yet to the parking needs of the businesses on Central Street. We already removed the parking on Central Street for several hours on game day, which makes it challenging then for people going to the restaurants and the shops to find a place to park. So that we don't lose the program altogether, I would like to propose that we test the basic concept with a substitute proposal, where we would focus just on the Central Street parking lot, and that would become a special event parking lot on football game days, and we would charge anyone who parked there during the certain hours of the before, during, and after the football game, the $40. And so it would be a way for us to test sort of what is the demand. Is there a demand, enough demand for parking for the football games that people are willing to pay $40? And it would be a significant number of parking places that we would collect that revenue from. So that would be my proposal, that become a substitute.
All right, thank you. We have one more speaker.
Okay.
Alderman Rainey, do you mind if I take that next speaker first?
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Rosinski? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Mary Rosinski. So I was also talking about the parking program because I I realize and I appreciate that the city needs revenue, but the program itself ends up penalizing the people who, on one hand, we were trying to help, and that is the people who live in the area and have the problem. The other thing is the amount of revenue is, I think, overestimated by twice, because it assumes that there's going to be 10 parking spaces in each block that will be available for non-resident parking. But most of the parking over there, because of their narrowness of the street and it's near the business district, you only park on one side. So there's just a lot of problems. Plus, if there are people that are coming in and they inadvertently, if you can't park 4 hours before and 2 hours after, and you were, for example, eating something or doing something, and you overran a half hour, you'd potentially get a $80 ticket because you didn't use the app. So it's just, I think it just is a program that needs to be really reevaluated before put into effect, because it feels very punitive to that whole target area. And full disclosure, I do live over there, and I mean, if you really wanted to solve the congestion of the resident parking and the pressure from the 40,000 people who go to the games, or 30,000, you would make it non-resident. You would make it resident-only parking during the game days. And second of all, I kind of like Alderman Ravel's suggestion. I hadn't heard that before tonight, but that at least would allow us to test and see, and then adequately do a survey on all the streets and see what's really available. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Well, I mean, Eleanor's idea is okay, but it's just too minimal. What I want to ask is, why do we eliminate all the parking on Central Street? Why do we do that? And
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Erica Storley, Assistant City Manager. The parking on Central Street is limited on game days because we need to efficiently let the traffic flow in and out of the stadium. Very narrow streets entering into the stadium, a lot of people trying to get there all at the same time. Typically, we put signs on the meters saying you can park there up until a certain time, and then it becomes restricted parking so that we can free flow the traffic coming in, and then midway through the game switches to the other side where the other side of the parking is stripped, and then allows for a faster exit from the stadium for the game release. We have 6 home games this year, 4 of which we anticipate will potentially sell out, including Notre Dame for the first time coming to the stadium in a long time. So we think that there's going to be an extreme burden on the traffic area trying to get people in and out. So we're continuing to evaluate what types of restrictions may be needed along that corridor, but certainly we try to always make sure that there's ample parking on the Central Street for the businesses up until as close as possible to when we need to remove that parking for game
what
concerns.
Time is that? What time do we strip parking?
I believe it's 4 hours before kickoff. So if it's
pretty much. I mean, if it's a noon game, I mean, it's pretty much all day.
For 7 o'clock games, I believe that the restriction starts at 3 or 4.
But how many 7 o'clock games are?
Right now, we have 1 out of 6 scheduled, or potentially more.
So what I would suggest is, because I mean, I don't think the traffic is that bad. There's so much random arrival and departure. I mean, really, and so many people are walking and parking far away. I think that can we adjust those meters randomly from afar?
We would like to have that capability. We tried to do some things with the meters earlier last year, if you remember, for Memorial Day, to put notice on there that you had to pay. Didn't work out so well.
For months we didn't have to pay. I love that.
This software for those meters is pretty antiquated, and we don't really have confidence that that would be successful if we tried to do it.
I was going to suggest we charge $40 for the meter for like 6 hours on game day. Every meter on Central Street from one place to another is $40 for about 6 hours. And that would be a pilot. But if we can't do that, I mean, if you can't figure that out, because I don't think there's a need to strip parking off that street if we had a real way to make some money on those meters.
Deputy.
I was just checking to see if anybody from police was here who could opine on that. Certainly is something that we could look into.
And
Definitely.
you could, with the Park Evanston program.
The Park Evanston app would work the same if we were to go that direction. I think the businesses would have some concerns.
But they have concerns now because
Yeah,
nobody
on
can
game
park
day.
there. This way, at least people can park there and maybe stop off and, they can't park there now. This way they can park there and there would be people.
All right, Alderman Braithwaite, did you have a comment?
No.
No. All right, so my question is, when is the first game?
The first game is September 8th.
All right, so we potentially have some. Okay, so here are my concerns, and I don't live in the area, so I do defer to Alderman Sufferin and Alderman Ravel. When this came to parking and transportation, although I realize it doesn't necessarily cut back on the congestion of the neighbors who do live right there, particularly the ones who live right across the street in those apartments where there already is limited parking. But at this point, if I understand correctly, if you park there all day, you get a $20 ticket. Is that how much the ticket is? So if you park,
If you park in a tow zone, it depends.
or not in a tow zone, if you park at a meter or you park somewhere you don't have or is it just free parking? There's no residential restrictions.
If you park at a meter that's not restricted and you just park there all day, you would get a ticket for overstaying the meter, which is, I think, $20 for the expired meter. But if you extend past the time, the 2-hour time limit that would be also in effect, you would then get the ticket for overtime, which I think is $40 or $45. So it would depend on how long you overstayed the
Okay.
meter. But
So ideally at this point, you could park somewhere and not pay the meter or do whatever, and the most you're paying is $45 in the
Correct.
current situation. Okay.
Correct.
So the Central Street lot, if we charge $40, how many cars does that fit in that lot?
if we were talking about the Poplar lot, which is 2,000 Poplar to 2,400 Poplar, parking along the metro station, it's 217 spaces.
So I can't do the math. So
It's about
here-
$8,000 per game, $50,000 for the season if we were to fill it.
But that also does not deter people from just parking on the street and taking a residential space already. I mean, we would try to get them over to this lot, but they still would just have free access to the street as they do now.
Correct. It would just be a matter of convenience if people didn't want to drive around the neighborhood looking for parking and just wanted an easy place to go and get in and out.
Yeah, so I guess I feel like maybe this needs more discussion, but I don't live over there. I think that we have an opportunity, slightly for revenue, but also to consider the neighbors who do have to endure the parking, particularly for these large games that we have coming up, and to just allow someone to park on the street for potentially a $20 ticket or $40 ticket is still much cheaper than I imagine when people go to Michigan and these different places. And it still is not necessarily going to help with the residents having more parking. I mean, if I have a husband who's a season ticket holder and he'd happily pay $25 and take a ticket and walk across the street. So I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity to change it. But again, I'm going to defer. I think maybe, in my opinion, I would like more information. Alderman Sufferin, you share the ward. Are there any other comments that you have?
Yeah, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I think I would like to be as deferential as possible to Alderman Ravel, since this is really her constituents being affected directly. I think to Ms. Rosinski's point about congestion, there would not be, in my opinion, fewer or more cars. They would just be generating revenue they are not generating now if we were to implement the original proposal, which would have been the $40 to park on the street. However, after the meeting that Alderman Ravel and I had with residents, there are a lot of concerns about guest passes and how that would work. And I don't know that we have enough time to implement that correctly. And that's a concern. Alderman Ravel's compromise proposal would generate revenue, allow us to gauge demand, and also diminish the subsidy that all Evanston taxpayers are giving to game day operations when, particularly with these large games with variable kickoff times, we don't know what our police overtime costs will be. And to Alderman Rainey's point about ingress and egress, I defer to the police on that, but I do think that we need to be very aware of the effects on Central Street businesses who kind of knew what they were getting into on game day, but we shouldn't do anything to exacerbate their difficulties, but still maintain safe traffic flow west towards the expressway for people after the game. So I think Alderman Ravel's compromise is a good start, and then hopefully as we get further into the Park Evanston app, we can figure out ways to capture more revenue from out-of-town people who have another option for parking too. Nobody is forced to park on the streets near the stadium. There are other pay lots. There's Northwestern Campus parking and shuttle. So there's nobody who is going to be taking advantage of this parking near the stadium who has no other option. So people are going to be making a choice to pay the $40 or risk the $80 ticket. So I think, going forward as we try and have a more equitable arrangement for game day costs and operations, this is a good starting point.
All right, so there's no other questions. So I did not write down all of your amended motions, so I'm not sure I'm going to do it justice to try to amend it here on the floor with nothing in front of me.
I think what I came up with was slightly different than what Erica Storley suggested, but I mean, my suggestion is that we make the Central Street parking lot a special event parking lot for football game days, and charge $40 for the people parking there during the hours before, during, and after the football game.
All right, so I can make the motion. I don't know how we implement them. I guess we need some figuring out what before and after means and some times and so on and so forth, right?
We could go with the times that were in the original proposal, which was 4 hours before the game starts and 2 hours after.
All right, and then just for staff, then I guess as we phase this in and see what it looks like, I guess it's going to come back to APNW or Parking and Transportation. I would like to make the request that we actually, in that report, not only track the parking at the Central Street lot, but also track the number of tickets. So I'd like to make that request when it comes back here for review.
I would just like to request clarification on which lot that is. I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
I mean, it's on Central, at the corner of Central Street and Stewart. I think, is that Stewart? Yep, Stewart.
This is the lot across from Great Harvest.
Across from Great Harvest and the library. Mm-hmm.
That's far.
That lot is owned by the City of Evanston, and it has significantly less spaces than the one that I talked about earlier. It's also significantly further away from the stadium. We could try it, but I'm not sure it would yield any results.
Alderman Sufferman.
Is it possible to do both?
As I was just going to ask.
Yeah, can we do the one at Metro?
Do Poplar and do that lot as well?
Certainly.
But don't shoppers use that lot? When I go to Central Street, I park in.
Yeah, but we're talking specifically about game day, Alderman Rainey.
Oh. But we're talking about not affecting the stores where you can't park on the street. So.
No, people could park on the streets because there wouldn't be any restrictions on the streets.
On game day, there is. At the meters.
The parking restrictions on game day do not extend that far west. They only serve closer to Green Bay, so from Green Bay east to the stadium.
So that is kind of a far walk.
That is a far walk. Okay, so
park downtown and take.
So I am going to make a request then as the chair. There's been a lot of changes, and I think for clarity, for public sake, because I understand you had a meeting, but other people maybe didn't attend or what have you. Can we hold this because we have another meeting before we will have the first game? Am I correct in my calendar? We do not have another meeting?
We do not have another meeting until September 17th. So if we did want to do this for the first game, we would need action tonight. But it is a pilot. We could certainly hold it till the 17th and just do it.
Well, no, I don't want to miss the first game. I just was looking at a different calendar, I guess.
Alderman, let me just have them come back with the corrected motion for City Council, and it can be read at the.
But then we can't move this one forward if it's incorrect, can we?
We could introduce it.
If the council would like to, if the committee would like to amend the motion, it would just be an amendment to include the Central Street parking lot and the Metro Street parking lot on Central Street 2400 to 2000 Poplar.
Okay.
All else stays the same.
But it would be strike. All else stays the same. All right, I'm going to trust you. Okay, so I am going to make a motion to amend. Where are we at? Ordinance 93-0-18, correct? Okay, to include the Central Street parking lot and the Poplar Street parking lot. Is that correct? Okay. Second, Alderman Rainey.
Yes, when is the second game?
I don't know.
I don't have the schedule.
And do we want to go ahead with this if there are vacant spaces?
The second game is September 15th.
So we'd miss 2 games if we didn't move forward tonight.
Correct.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded with the amended motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So A19 is remaining the same. Is that correct? I've gotten thoroughly confused now. All right, A19, ordinance A94-0-18, amending City Code Section 10-11-17 on parking violation penalties to add Schedule 17, non-payment of special event parking fee. So staff recommending City Council adopt this ordinance amending the City Code Section parking violation penalties to add, Schedule 17, non-payment of special event parking fees during the special event pilot program mentioned in item A19. The penalty fee for non-payment would be $80. This is recommended suspension of the rules, introduction, and action.
Second.
All right, Alderman Ravel, did you have another comment, or did you cover your comments the first time? All right, Ms. Rosinski, you as well? Can you please come to the...
Thank you very much. I was unclear when you said the parking lot and all else remains the same. What does that mean?
The hours.
Oh, hours. So there wouldn't be a problem
Still
with
4
people
hours
who have
before,
guests
2 hours
during the
after.
game. Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
we're only dealing with that parking lot and the Poplar area.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so A19 has been moved and seconded. Any questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. A20 is ordinance 92-0-18, amending City Code Section 10-11-7, bus stops and zones to add signed bus stops on Dodge Avenue from Oakton to Main Street. I am suspending the rules for introduction and action.
Second.
Thank you. Seeing no lights for questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And our last item for discussion is APW 1, proposed amendment to Snow Route Code of Ordinance 10-4-13 and the snow route designated in Section 10-11-6, Schedule 6. And there is a presentation by staff.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Edgar Cano, Public Services Bureau Chief. Today, we wanted to bring forth discussion, proposed amendments to 2 snow-related ordinances. The first one is 10-11-6, the snow route schedule. It's my understanding you did not have the paperwork in front of you prior to this in order to see what modifications we proposed. So if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me and I'll address any issues that you have. Staff took a look at the current snow route schedule and found a lot of discrepancies between the schedule, the map, and what is actually posted out in the streets. So in order to correct those discrepancies, we're bringing forth proposed modifications. You do have the Exhibit A in front of you. At least I hope you have Exhibit A in front of you. And that explains everything into detail. But pretty much what we're going to be covering is just clarifying starting and ending points, updating the snow route ordinance to match what is currently posted and necessary, adding new proposed snow route locations, and removal of streets which no longer exist or are necessary as a snow route. So that's going to be the first ordinance we're going to cover. The second one's going to be Ordinance 10-4-13, subsection C, which has to do with snow emergency revisions. So this is the proposed snow route revisions. The proposed revisions are shown in blue. The red is the current snow routes as they stand, as they are posted. Our Our main things that we're recommending right now is the removal of a couple of streets from the ordinance. The reason for the removal, they just either no longer exist or serve no purpose being a snow route currently. So those streets that we are recommending for removal are Foster Street, east from its intersection with Ridge Avenue to its intersection with Sherman Avenue. This would require no update to the map or the postings. No, try to make this, the PowerPoint as short as
Wait,
possible.
I'm sorry, so what would be the change, or did I miss that?
Currently, Foster Street is listed on the schedule as a snow route.
Right.
However, it is not posted as a snow route. It's posted as residential, and it's also not included in the snow route map. So we are proposing just eliminating it from the snow route schedule.
So then it wouldn't be plowed, or, that's where I was confused at.
Basically, the snow routes just, parking ban goes into effect from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., and it was just, there would not be any parking ban associated with that street between those boundaries.
So thanks for paying attention to that, but it allows relief from the parking on Dodge when we have to move from Dodge, so we have that as an option. So,
Got it.
yeah.
Now, this is between Ridge Avenue.
By the chicken shack.
Oh, down there.
Yes, this is between Ridge Avenue to its intersection with Sherman.
So that's over by the university.
So there, it's residential. There's businesses right there. On
Can I make a
Foster.
suggestion?
Sure.
I mean, I think you have enough time between now and before the next snow season to drive with the alderman, make sure that's something that she wants to do before you recommend that change. That'd be my
Yeah,
suggestion
because
to you.
it's already pretty limited over there.
Yeah.
And it's a very dense area.
Okay.
A lot of students. But then I'm not sure about the need for parking because who the primary residents are over there. So could we hold that for a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course, if you do recommend keeping it on, we would just have to update the map and update the posting on the street to reflect it being a snow route.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question. I know this is for discussion and we're just getting the exhibit. Is it possible, or when do you need to make these changes to the ordinance?
We would like to have it done before the beginning of the snow season. Typically begins after November 1st.
Okay, so since it's just for discussion now, I guess I need a little more time to digest this.
Of course.
I'm just trying to look and see what's in my ward just off the top of my head. So Deputy Storley, is this going to be coming back, I'm assuming, right, for us to approve? All right, so if you want to just finish that up, and I'm happy to keep taking questions from the council, but I just want to make sure that we have some time to digest this
Okay.
and speak with you individually.
Okay. And I'll just touch on the main points.
Okay, thanks.
Streets recommended for removal, Foster is stated. Also, Keeney Street, west from its intersection with Sheridan Road to its intersection with Michigan Avenue. Keeney Street is currently listed twice on the snow route schedule. Not sure if that's just a mistake, but we are recommending removing it, as well as Railroad Avenue. That street no longer exists at the points designated here from its intersection with Davis Street to its intersection with Church Street. So we recommend removing it. We also recommend addition of some streets to the ordinance. That's going to be Greenleaf, west from its intersection with Dodge Avenue to its intersection with Pittner. We would have to update the map. No need to update the postings that is currently posted as a snow route.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about that one also.
Okay.
Through the meeting.
Another addition would be Harrison Street, west from its intersection with Crawford Avenue to its intersection with Greeley Avenue. This used to be a state route, became part of a city street, so we want to add it now to the snow routes. No need to update the map or the posting, currently posted as a snow route. Another addition is Lincoln Street, west from its intersection with Green Bay Road to its intersection with Hartree Avenue. This is not on the ordinance, however, it is shown on the map. It is shown on the map and posted as a snow route.
Edward, can you stay on this? I have two quick questions. First, have you given consideration to the District 65 bus routes while making these changes and updates? That's the first question that we can address in the next conversation.
Okay.
And then if we don't do it now, I'm curious. I'm always wondering how our city staff addresses the snow when it comes. Do you start from east to west? Do you go to north to south? Do you rotate? I mean, can you give me a real high-level understanding, like how do you attack a very thick snowstorms from just given all the different wards and streets that you have to plow?
Well, it does depend on the snowstorm. Obviously, the type of precipitation, the severity, time of start and everything. However, right now we break it down for a major storm into 9 different zones. Within those 9 zones, typically all the trucks start at the same time, have one major truck, a couple small trucks to assist with the residential streets. Lesser storms, we break it down into a 6-zone system, but everyone goes out at the same time, gets plowed at the same time.
North, south, east, west. Can you give me a better idea? I mean, you don't have to take time now if you're not prepared for it. I'm just.
We do have a map that depicts all of our zones, which I can include in the presentation.
That'd be nice. Thank you.
Of course.
If I could follow up on that, the 9 snow routes that we have, they're not by ward boundary. They're just an equal amount of miles in different sections of the city, and there's trucks in all 9 sections at all times. And the first thing that they try to do are the primary streets, and then there are smaller trucks that are doing the residential streets. But it's a fairly equal distribution of manpower across the city, all at the same time.
Got it. Thank you, Director.
The majority of the streets that, or the majority of the revisions that we plan a lot are just clarification. Currently, the snow route schedule doesn't state boundaries on some of the streets. It's just assumed that it's from beginning to start within the city boundaries, so we just want to add some clarification there. There's also some just mistakes as far as direction. It states north from one street, south to another, when it's actually south from that street to the other name of the street, as in the case with Davis and Grove. Currently it states north from Davis to Grove, where it should be south from Davis to Grove. If we do decide to go with these recommended revisions, we would just have to do some updated posting out in the streets. These are the locations that posting updates would have to be taken into consideration: Benson Avenue, Green Bay Road, Elmwood, Greenleaf, Maple, Ridge, and Orrington. I can go into some more detail, but I know we'll be discussing this at a later time.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to just say real quick, thank you for taking the time to go through this. I know that our street signage has been updated a couple times, but people, often still find it confusing, and so I appreciate that you went through each part, particularly to take off a street that no longer even exists in the city. So thank you for doing that. And then my second request is when we get to a final list that we would make sure that that's on the website and very public, maybe even flyers at ward meetings so that people understand, if they used to move their car, they don't have to, or vice versa. I think that's very important during the snow time. So we have this. We will contact you with further questions, and thank you for the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, do we have any communications from members of the council?
Nope.
No. All right, so I'm going to move that we adjourn this meeting. It is 7:15. Planning and development will start at, how soon are they ready? 7:25? All right, so I moved adjournment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.